There we go. Oh my gosh, this is...
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Think Outside Fishing Podcast presented by Baits.com. I'm Joey Bissing. Today, I'm joined by my partner in crime in the social media space, Charlie Peterson. Charlie, how are we doing today?
We're doing great. We got a special guest coming on, Tom Huynh,
Yeah.
Northland Tackle Pro, National Walleye Tour Pro.
Yeah, so this is kind of a, hey, Tom, how are we doing? A little bit of a different spin on as last week. So, yeah, as an introduction to you, Tom, or kind of tell you what's going on with this podcast. We have the GSM portfolio of brands. It's incredible. We got Northland Tackle, Yamamoto Fishing, Northland's Walleye and Bass Centered, Yamamoto's more bass fishing centered. And we've got a whole bunch of other brands that are really bass fishing centered. We don't have a lot of walleye guys, or we don't really talk to that many walleye guys. We thought it'd be a perfect opportunity to bring you on, us acquiring Northland recently. And you're one of the top guys in the National Walleye Tour right now. And this is just going to be a really cool podcast, kind of different from what we're normally doing. Always talking about bass fishing. This is going to be more walleye centered. And we're really excited to have you, Tom. Thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Of course. So I guess, Tom, you want to kind of give your little backstory. So just think about this as a bass fishing audience. That's mostly what we've been posting. I think we've done 20 or so podcasts. This might be 20. I'm not really sure. Just kind of explain who you are, what the National Walleye Tour is, what you guys fish. For someone like for myself, I don't know that much about it. I grew up north, but I live down south now. I don't know an insane amount about the National Walleye Tour or yourself.
Yeah, so I came up, I grew up in Arkansas. So I grew up down south where bass fishing was huge. And actually walleyes down in Arkansas physically are giant. Like they're just big fish, but nobody targets them, right? But it's just bass down south. So growing up, I never really knew anything but bass fishing. And I grew up on my grandpa's little cattle farm down there, just 100 acres. He built a bunch of little ponds, which he stocked with largemouth bass, catfish, bluegills, things like that. And that's the only kind of fishing I knew. Literally, I grew up watching bass fishing on the weekends, just thinking how cool that'd be to do someday. And, I could wear one of those fancy jerseys, be in one of those fancy boats and make a ton of money. And in reality, it's completely opposite. You wear a fancy jersey, a fancy boat like this, and you're broke, But but growing up, that's what I wanted to do. But then I finished college, high school down there, went to college in Minnesota. I started a career in Minnesota and worked, I think, 17 years in my businesses, literally open to close. I would take a week off here and there to go visit my family back in Arkansas. But I didn't set foot into a boat until I was in my mid-30s. So that's not even 10 years ago. And that boat that I first set foot into was the one I just bought, so I didn't have anybody to teach me. I didn't, at the time I was thinking, it was nerve wracking. Just putting the boat in the water was nerve wracking. I forgot to put the drain plug in the boat I put the drain plug in the first trip I went, but I put it in the wrong hole. You know what I mean? I thought I was back in college again. No. And I went and put that in, just learn from my mistakes on the fly. And there were some small bass leagues around here in the, 2010, 2008, 2010, up locally up here around Moorhead, Minnesota. I think there's one in Barnesville at the time and one like in DL, but I would contact them. Nobody would get a hold of me to fish a bass tournament. I couldn't jump in. So I'm like, you know what? I'm just, the only place I could go fish an actual bass tournament. I just went all in and fished a Bassmaster Open on Ross Barnett Reservoir in March one year. Yeah, got completely annihilated by the locals and the pros. You know what I mean? But learned on the fly, caught a 7-pound largemouth in that tournament, which by far was the biggest largemouth I'd ever caught. But I think that was the only fish I caught in the whole entire tournament, actually. But
It was
I didn't
giant.
care. I learned a ton. I threw myself in, but that's also what happened. I didn't have any bad habits. So I started fishing bass right away. And when I upgraded boats, it just had my bass boat just happened to have Garmin LiveScope mounted on my Ultrex at the time, and I didn't know any better. All I knew was this something new that Garmin came out with, and it was just on the boat. So I started utilizing it because of COVID. My businesses at home got shut down for 7 weeks, so that put me on the water down south, actually in Arkansas and Tennessee, and I was just scanning around with that thing one day, and I saw this school of fish out deep in Tennessee. And I was like, that can't be bass. I was fishing for largemouth, but I said, that can't be bass. So I casted. It was a Senko. I was actually Yamamoto Senko. And I casted it out there and just watched that thing go down. It was 25, 30 feet of water and hit the bottom. And I saw some fish converge on it. And I'm like, oh, I get bit. And I'm like, that's not a largemouth. But I had to see what these fish were. I reeled in 2 or 3 pound largemouth. I sat there for about 20, 30 minutes, and I ended up catching I sat there for 2 or 3 hours, caught 20 to 30 bass.
Yeah.
And they're 3, 4 pounders. I mean, some were nice. That's what made it click. I'm like, these fish aren't where they're supposed to be. And so then I started just kind of casting at everything and learning all these things. And I didn't fish Bassmaster. I didn't fish the Opens that year because they redid the schedule and I just couldn't make it work.
Mhm.
Came back home to Minnesota. This is in 2020. And there was a tournament coming to Leech Lake in Minnesota, and it happened to be a walleye tournament. And at first I was like, I'm not going to do it because I'd never really caught a limit of walleyes in my life. But I just met my buddy Nate, and we just talked about it. And we're like, let's just do it. So in my bass boat, we went out there. Long story short, Leech Lake, monstrous lake. We took 3 days to break it down. We got the last spot in the tournament because some older guys dropped out because of COVID. If that wouldn't have happened, if all these things wouldn't have lined up, there's no way I would have a giant Vexus with a Northland wrap on it behind me right now. You know what I mean? It just
That's
crazy
wild.
it's just wild how things worked out. So got in that tournament. It was a catch photo release tournament. We turned in our packets at the end of the day, and at the dock, Nate and I will never forget how all these other guys were talking. Oh yeah, we just heard them over dock talk type stuff. They're like,
Yeah, exactly.
oh, we caught 20, 30 today. And these guys were like, yeah, we were catching like 40 or 50 in practice. We only caught like 10 or 20 today. Me and Nate were looking at each other like, dude, see, because I told Nate, I'm like, these tournaments aren't easy to win. I mean, they're not easy to do good in. But I told Nate, I said, see, we got beat, So we went back to the campground, fired up the grill, started the fire pit and everything. And I started getting this phone number from calling me, and I didn't answer because I didn't have it saved, and it ended up being the tournament director. But I had no intention of saving his number because I wasn't going to fish another walleye tournament. But he was trying to call me just to tell me that we won the tournament. And so
That's crazy.
I ended up saving that number because then we fished the next one, got a 4th place, and then fished a bigger circuit and won that and set a lake record all in 2020. So that's the path. That was my path. And what I learned, though, you say it's a lot of you got people out there watching this are bass orientated. They're not that different. They're not that different. So like whenever my thought process behind going to find big walleyes in the beginning, I'm going to go where I think a big bass would live up here, in these areas.
Yeah.
And sure enough, out in the middle and on these humps or on these deep weed edges, sparse weed edges, I mean, they're there. They're all there. Then now it's all about learning your electronics and making yourself more efficient, because it's now I can scan around in these weeds and I'm like, okay, those are largemouth. I'm not wasting a cast, right?
Yeah.
Where you guys would be like, oh, there's a walleye. Okay, I'll catch one for dinner, but I'm not going to waste time
Yeah,
know, otherwise. So I've dialed that stuff in, and it's awesome now just to be able to see the similarities.
Yeah, it's so cool. Can you kind of explain? So you explained your path to how you got to where you were. Can you kind of explain the National Walleye Tour, what that is, where you guys travel all over the country and kind of that route there too?
Yeah,
But,
there's
but
4 Go ahead,
before
Charlie.
we get into that, I just wanted to circle back on like, how you probably recommend, someone being super prepared, ready to jump into those tournaments. But also for you to get to where you were, I mean, you kind of just jumped in, like you said, you just jumped into open because you wanted to get into fishing tournaments, and that was like,
Mhm.
the one that you could get a hold of and get into, and then you did the same thing with on the walleye side.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah,
just, you don't necessarily recommend someone just jump in, but sometimes
no,
that's what you need to do is just go all in.
it is. If you have you have to be disciplined with that, though. I would say, because you can't. There's too many of us meaning bass and walleye tournament anglers, that will go broke. We'll lose our money. We'll lose our house. We'll lose our truck. We'll lose our relationships because
Yep.
we have jumped in, or we take that next step to the pro level, and it's expensive. But you and it's a time drain. Okay, but I told myself, okay, if I do this, I'm giving myself 3 years, and if I can't break even, like, just my season is a wash after 3 years, I'm done. And that third year came, and I was prepared. I was ready. Like, okay, that's it. I tried it. At least I don't have to wonder what if. And just so happened to be that third year was when that LiveScope hit my boat, and started learning stuff. But definitely, if there is something to be said for throwing yourself into it, because number one, you're spending a lot of money. You're taking a lot of time from home and a lot of time from family. So what that's going to do is it's going to push you to not waste any time when you're out there pre-fishing. It's going to make you want to work extremely, extremely hard. I didn't have a team. I didn't run with the team, so that also made me want to work even harder. But that if you do it that way, you have to be disciplined. But otherwise, yes, start small, learn from there, and then gradually get into it. But you can do it either way. I did it a very unconventional way, and fortunately, things worked out.
It worked out.
But yeah, but the NWT is basically our top tier level tournaments for walleye fishing. So you have some team tournament circuits, but this one is a pro co type situation. A little bit different than when Bassmaster had their co-anglers. This is like, so if I go out and I draw Charlie as a co-angler, and then I go out and catch 20 pounds, I catch all. Let's just say I happen to catch all the fish, and we catch 20 pounds. We both get 20 pounds going into day 2. Okay.
Gotcha.
That, I've talked to some bass guys in the last couple of years too, and they just, there's some things that I say on our side that we complain about over here that the bass guys wish they would do on their side.
Right.
Because then you don't have to worry about the front end of the co-angler casting ahead of you, whatever, things like that. And but anyway, that's how that works. And we don't have like any qualifiers as far as like an elite series type deal, anything like that. Not to say that it won't happen, but yeah, I don't see anything like that in the near future. But this is it. This is it for us. And so because of that, like, that's why, in order to try to help the industry grow, because with Northland, it's been in the walleye world for many, many years. Like, there was a time where the walleye industry, from what I'm learning now, was growing pretty rapidly, and it kind of just leveled off, and it just kind of stayed there. But it's because of it's because of the education. It's because bass took a whole different route, and they are big into education without even trying to be. Meaning, like bass, now you have live cameras in multiple different circuits, so people can see what color baits that they're using, what size, what cadence, where they're fishing. You can see exactly where they're at on the lake. And these people, the fans, can go out then and duplicate that exactly and actually go out and catch fish. You know, so that's working. They go buy the baits, they do this and that. On the walleye side for years, it's been so secretive where we could say anything we want when we get off that stage. You know what I mean? We get off the stage and basically we forget what we're about to lie about. So we have to look at our boats and be like, yep, I caught him on this north one. Yay. And oh yeah, I got a Suzuki motor on the back of the boat and I wear FXR stuff that I bought at Reed's. You know? So it's like, but that's where I learned that right on early on and fishing the NWT. I was just watching some of these guys, like literally watching them fish in the day next to me, and then hear them say something else. It's like, I get it now. This is why our industry over here is just so stagnant. But that's why I just literally, I've never I don't have secrets as far as what I'm doing.
Yeah, Tom is very open in sharing and helping others, to catch more fish.
Yeah, and just tell them exactly what I'm doing. In the beginning, it was funny because Charlie knows for the first couple of years, I could tell people exactly what I'm doing, exactly what I'm using. Most people thought I was lying anyway. So actually, that was kind of a bonus because I still had it to myself for a little bit. But
exactly. So did you have, I guess, LiveScope? Did you have it on your boat since you started the NWT, or was it okay? And then is that did you kind of just skyrocket from there on the circuit and kind of be one of the top guys in the NWT?
Right from the beginning, I'd say. Yeah, because in 2021, the first year fishing the NWT, I made the championship and I finished second in that championship in 2021 behind Eric McCoy, who also he was fishing with LiveScope. And even Eric at that time was using his LiveScope on a pole up front. I was the only one, that was crazy, in 2021 using it. Isn't that crazy? But you think about it. So I was doing it in 2019, right?
So you had 2 years of doing it every time you went fishing, right?
Yes. Yeah. So in 2019, I have video. Actually, those bass I caught, it's crazy because I forgot I recorded that until a memory popped up last year. And I was watching, I'm like, I got goosebumps, guys. Yeah. I was like, holy crap, I recorded this.
And, wait, what lake was that on? Sorry to cut you off, but what lake was that on?
It was on Chickamauga.
No way.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I live literally 45 minutes from there.
I'll give you the waypoint. There's a hump with a bunch of grass on the top, and off the edge of it was a bunch of largemouth.
That's too funny.
Yeah, I don't care. I'll give it to you. But see, that was the thing. In 2019, I was doing this just when Jason Christie and Scott Martin were talking about it.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Looking back, and me not knowing anybody in the industry, 0 people, I didn't know a person. But looking back now, I think I was one of the first ones to be utilizing it like this. I don't think there was. I literally don't think anybody, because that was before the LVS 32 even. That was when they came out with that weird one, the LVS 12, that has the cone shoots out forward and down, and you miss everything out here in the mid under the bottom. So that was then, and so
that's what Scott Martin had on his boat, right? And he was always keeping it secretive in his YouTube videos and stuff for a good while. I remember I was in college watching that stuff, what is going on here? And then it kind of slowly started showing up after that.
Yeah, but a lot of those guys, that were traditionally good at bass fishing, like Scott and Christie and those guys that were really, really good anglers traditionally without the electronics. The electronics, I don't think really helped them. I think they relied a lot on what they knew, right? Yeah. And me, I didn't know anything. So then, or these guys coming up now that are really good with it in the Bassmaster circuit, these are younger guys. I get grouped in with the young guys all the time. I'm in my mid 40s, but it's kind of the same thing because they are kind of growing up with it. And I kind of did too, because that was what I first started using right away. And people always ask me, do you wish you would have went that bass route before? And I think about it, I'm like, maybe, but maybe not. You know, because I love the position I'm at right now on the walleye side with the education side and all of that. I mean, tournaments are fine too. I still like fishing tournaments, but this education thing's been awesome. But I do think that I mean, I owe it to Forward Facing Sonar. I do. I'm never going to make excuses about that, you know, but it is what it is.
Yeah, no, definitely. So it is cool to see that you were kind of one of the first ones to have it for sure on the walleye circuit, and then you just kind of skyrocketed from that. So you said 2021 was when you joined the circuit and made the championship right away, took second, and then kind of what happened from there.
So in 2022 was my worst season because that was the first year I had to fish an actual true river, like a true fast flowing current moving river. Yeah. And as we know, LiveScope in the river is just, it's not no. So I zeroed on that very first tournament of the season. And so if you zero, making the championship is nobody's ever done it. Okay. So I didn't make the championship that year in 2022, but in 2021, if I rewind again, that was the first full season of fishing the walleye team circuit. So me and my buddy Nate, in our first year, we won the state championship over second place by 35 pounds. And we won. Yeah, it was stupid. That was the singular tournament that put LiveScope on notice. People knew about it, right? Yeah. But that's the one people are like, "Holy crap, this is," you know. And we were
right.
Yeah, and we were in 5-foot waves on Lake of the Woods. You know, doing live scoping and that stuff when people were going in early with their giant boats. You know what I mean? And we were out there just bucking that wind. And but then we won the state championship. We ended up winning Team of the Year. That was our first year. In 2022, we repeated all of that. We won the championship, state championship on Lake Superior. You know, the king of lakes.
Yeah.
And then we won the Team of the Year again that year, and then we won the national championship for that as well. And so we had a really good run, and we don't fish that circuit anymore. We did what we needed to do there, and just kind of step out and give room, let other people grow in the circuit, stuff like that.
3 years in a row, won about everything you could.
Yeah, and plus it's time. It takes a lot of time to do commitment to do all of that, and so now just focusing on the NWT and the education side of it. But then in 2023 in National Walleye Tour, I finished really close to the top in Angler of the Year points, and I've been in the top 10 every year so far of Angler of the Year points, I think, maybe even top 5, except for that 2022. But so yeah, it's been good. And then last year, with 2 tournaments remaining, I was 20 some points down, and it was kind of nice because I was off people's radar for Angler of the Year. But then that championship came, and the top 3 of us happened to make the top 10, and I needed the top guy to finish 9th and myself to win. And on day 3 of the tournament, I was sitting in 8th place, and then went out to my area. The fish showed up, ended up catching the biggest bag of the tournament, winning, and he did come in 9th place.
Wow!
And we ended up tying, but he won the tiebreaker.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah. But it was cool though. I can't complain. That was awesome.
Yeah, so an incredible run.
So it didn't take you long to, get into, the educational side of, you're obviously telling everyone, how you're catching them from the start. But, I probably would have, Joey and I probably would have kept some secrets, a little bit longer and keep trying to, have an edge on everyone. But you've dove into, really trying to help others, utilizing the forward facing sonar like you have been, and you actually started at Tom Wyn University. So
Mhm.
tell us a little bit how, how important it is for you to teach that to others, and a little bit about the university and some of the um, good things that has come from, sharing
Yeah.
that information.
Yeah. So like, me just starting again back in, the bass side in the late 20 teens and then going into the Walleye World in 2020, didn't I didn't know anybody, and you'd always run across somebody at the boat dock or something like that, and you'd ask them, like house fishing and stuff like that, and nobody really would help you. No, I mean, you know what I mean? It was just tough, and I started listening to people, watching people up on stage and stuff like that, and started learning like just putting stuff together. And again, I think it comes from me not being one of the kids getting into it. Like I got into it late, and I already had to pay bills. I had to, live a life first. And then, so I started appreciating the fact that there's so many people that want to get into the sport that get not upset, upset, they get discouraged because they see us making it look easy, but then they go try it. They buy all the stuff. They work 40 hours a week. The stuff's expensive. They buy what we tell them to. They go out to use it, and they just can't figure it out. So a lot of people, really, a ton of people bought forward-facing sonar and took it off their boats. It was crazy how many people I talked to that didn't use it because they're like, just thought it was going to be magic, because we make it look like it's magic. And because what are we putting on YouTube? Like I don't have
Just the
active YouTube.
highlights.
Yeah, we're only
Just
showing
the
the highlights.
highlights.
We're showing the hook sets. We're not showing all of the stuff in between. So that's where I started thinking, because I started getting all these questions through social media. I went from like when I first met Charlie a few years ago, I was like, why do these guys even want me? Because my social media is terrible. But I slowly started understanding, okay. And then Gary Parsons. Gary Parsons they call him the godfather of walleye fishing up here. Like he's been doing it over 40 years. I had a really short conversation with him after a weigh-in one time, and he said, I love what you're doing with your social media. You're teaching people, and you're different, because I can tell for some reason you're telling everybody everything. And so for him to pull me aside, tell me that, and it just kind of put something in my head, like, because I was leaning towards, if I'm going to do something, it's going to lean more towards an like entertainment type thing, like cameras in the boat showing day in the life of this and that. There's some good productions out there right now, very well produced shows that are out doing that, but there's zero education value in that. And what Gary told me that time just always stuck with me. So then that's why I created Tom Huynh University. It is a deep dive into forward-facing sonar, from the very bare basics to everything that I'm doing now, all in one course. And it's different than literally anything anybody's ever seen. I don't even care. Not the bass world hasn't seen it. The saltwater world hasn't seen the format that it is. It's curriculum based, meaning actually the format, the way it's laid out, is borrowed from continuing education platform from Harvard, right? So it's it is the same type deal. So anybody who's done that upper level type education is going to be very familiar to, but it's super easy to navigate, right? It's crazy easy to navigate for people. I have people enrolled in 40 some states. I'm shooting for that few more there. It's just shy of 20 some countries, which is unbelievable.
Wow.
And I know. And what's different is, like, I have almost 200 high definition videos in that, and a big chunk of them are my actual LiveScope screen recorded. It's not like a camera, you know what I mean. It's an actual HD recording taken from the unit.
Yeah.
And then I inset myself into it, kind of like this. I inset myself into it, explaining play by play what they're seeing on the screen instead of a voiceover, or even more annoying, a caption or a still shot, right?
Right.
There's zero still shots. You cannot teach forward facing sonar with still shots. I'm sorry for anybody out there listening to try to do it. No, you can't.
Awesome.
You can't. So there's zero still shots. So I have hundreds of screen recordings, and I can't tell you how much time it took to do all that, and then just to put it all together, and but the response has been unbelievable. I have a bunch of guys from the Bassmaster Opens on it, and I have 8 Bassmaster Elite guys that are on it, that have subscribed, or that have enrolled, I should say.
So special. Wow.
It's crazy, and there's a flyer, and there's some guys out there. There's some really weird login names and fake email accounts that I guarantee they're. But I'll never. When people ask me like, "Do you have other NWT guys or do you have bass guys on there?" I'm like, "Yeah." They're like, "Who?" I'm like, "I'm not telling you guys.
Yeah.
The only way you're ever going to know is if they post and share. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and I'm getting that almost daily now, which is awesome. Where people are like putting I don't even know what you're going to call it, testimonials or something on their own page, and they tag me and stuff saying how they took the university and this and that. So I've had in tournaments this year, I've had 8 top 5s and 6 top 10s and 2 wins. Not my tournaments, not me fishing, but people who've enrolled in the university.
That's
Heck
awesome.
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So do they just like kind of tell? Is there like how do they tell you that they've done that, or do they just like tag you in a post and
I'm watching them.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I know who. I mean, I see the names. I'm like, oh shoot, that's freaking cool. They enrolled, and then I just watch. I pay attention, and and then some of them are tagging. They're tagging me. Some of them they tag me. Yeah, but otherwise, yeah. And the only ones I ever mention on my own page are the ones that tag me or share.
Right.
You know what I mean? But so it's been really cool, and there's bass content in there too, showing how largemouth set up in the weeds and stuff like that, where I never knew that they hung out in weeds like how I recorded, but yeah, they're very similar to walleyes, but there's a lot to be learned with forward facing. So it's not all about going out and catching fish. You can't, like I went out and saw the most walleyes I've ever seen the other day and the most smallmouth bass I've ever seen a week later. And I probably caught 10 a day. Yeah. After I've seen hundreds and hundreds of big ones. So, I mean, it's frustrating as well, but it's a great learning tool.
Definitely.
It's super cool, like how you get, private messages of, students in the university, and that you're sharing with me, and, you're showing more excitement about these responses from just individuals than, you are from winning the championship. Like that does it for you. So that's like super cool.
That's special, cool. Right?
And that's what's going to grow this industry it's not just the walleye side, but right now it is heavy walleye side. But like that's what's going to grow it is the guys who fish tournaments for many, many years, 20, 30 years, who've never cashed a check, who've never, you know what I mean? But they still do it because they have good jobs. They can afford it. So they do it. But now to see some of them coming out of the woodwork and they're like, holy crap, they're putting their trolling rods away and standing on the front deck of their boat, trying to learn boat control and things that I'm teaching them. It's just awesome to see. And the more people that are doing that, the more, activity we're going to have, more inspiration we're going to have all the way around to get more people out fishing. And then the kids, my goodness, the kids right now I had a kid in my boat 2 weeks ago on Leech Lake, never used LiveScope with the trolling motor. And I said, you want to try it? This is within like 30 minutes of being out in the water. I said, you want to try it? And we had a little bit of a wind, not too crazy. but one of the best I've ever seen with boat control with the trolling motor, that quick. Like it was unbelievable because when the back of the boat swinging around and you have to overcorrect the trolling motor just push the throttle and then get right back on that fish, for example. I don't know how it blew me away because
right?
yeah, it was awesome.
So it's really cool to see that you are taking the initiative and kind of like you want to grow walleye fishing by using LiveScope. Would you agree with that? And like you really want to teach people how to catch more walleye, which in return will grow the sport of walleye fishing. It's weird to see on the bass side, you know, how I feel like they're going away from LiveScope and people can't stand LiveScope. Do you kind of get the same hate on the walleye side, or is it more accepting like, hey, you know, we want to go catch more walleye? Like, why are we not using this thing to catch more fish?
Yeah, no, we don't get there's some up here, but it's not like down south. So it's a weird dynamic. Like again, I haven't been in this industry long, but talking to guys like again, Gary Parsons, he and his son Chase, Corey Springle, some of the guys who've been doing this for a long time, they tell me that every time something new with electronics has come out in the last 20 to 40 years, whether it could be GPS, being able to mark a waypoint, spot lock on a trolling motor, side scan, down scan, all of that stuff was attacked and tried to be made illegal mostly down south. But they say that the electronics have been embraced more in the upper Midwest and up north for some reason. Like it's always been like that, where the electronics have just been embraced up here more. Doesn't matter the age groups, than it has been in the down south. Now, I think that like when Easton won the championship, he got a lot of crap because he used Forward Facing Sonar, of course. But hey, everybody has it. And for all of the people who are hollering from their couches, like making it seem like it's so easy, that's what it is. They're like, oh, it should be illegal because it's this easy. If it's that easy, go win $300,000.
Yeah, exactly.
Literally,
you know what I mean?
That's
you should
simple.
go do it then, right?
Yeah, go do it real quick. No big deal. And so, but I think there's been people that I think there's a lot of those people just do it just to create chaos. You know what I mean? Back when Spot Lock came out, when GPS waypoints came out, there wasn't social media, right? So it was. So now with social media, it's just everything gets blown out of proportion, no matter what it is. But you can grow the sport with Northland. When I first got on board with Northland was all about forward facing sonar. And when they asked me what color jig tungsten do I want to see first, when I said black and walked out of the room, apparently a few of them got a little upset at their stomachs because they're like, we had black jigs in our bins for years collecting dust, and now this guy, I don't think he's joking, he wants black. But then black becomes really popular. And so, but that's the thing, it's just what we're learning. It doesn't matter if you sell 100,000 black tungsten jigs or if you sell 100,000 or 20,000 each of orange, yellow, blue,
right,
anything else. You know what I mean? So and as this progresses, technology progresses, the fish are still going to be there. They will probably be a little bit harder to catch because, down south, bass get educated because they're so pressured. Up here, it's going to be the same. So then that's when new baits, this is just the beginning. New baits, new tackle, new plastics, new colors, things are going to come out to help pull these fish more going forward. So we're just in the beginning stages now of growing these tackle companies.
Wow, that's a great way to look at it. I hope everyone can hear that point one day, because that was, I mean, I don't think you could have said it any better. And, kind of going back to LiveScope, do you think it's hurting the fish population? For me,
No.
I don't think it is, but kind of what you're saying with like, this has happened for the past 40 years. Like waypoints come out, side scan, down scan. They're still there. There's still just as many. Do you think LiveScope will kind of be the same route as those?
What? Sorry, you cut out for a little bit there.
Sorry, no. Yeah, so like as the same route of, hey, the fish are still going to be there. Might get a little bit more educated, but you're still going to be able to catch them.
Yeah. And we're seeing that a little bit here. The walleyes, I don't think, are susceptible. I don't think, like right now, I don't think the pinging or anything's affecting walleyes. I'm not seeing that, but the lakes around here are so healthy with bait, with all that. Just lately, with the warming trend we've had over the last few years, like the bait, the plankton, everything, that fish are just getting more finicky anyway. But like, I don't see the fish populations personally getting worse. We've already been doing this 3 or 4 years. Like I said, the other day I went on Leech Lake and I saw the most amount of walleyes I've ever seen ever in a day of walleye fishing. And they weren't easy to catch. They were, and there wasn't much fishing pressure where I was, hardly anybody out there. And on Mille Lacs, that lake is insanity right now. Big smallmouths again, and walleyes like crazy. And catching them is a whole different story. But yeah, it's just gonna be a matter of, pulling these fish, and they will get, because in walleye fishing, live bait is also an option, right? And so, but they will get accustomed to seeing live bait thrown in front of them. Then we're going to need those plastics, and we're going to need those hard baits to pique their curiosity, because that first championship Nate and I won was on plastics, right? Because it's something they hadn't seen, very curious, I believe, and I forgot who told me this one time, they don't have hands, so in order to see what it is, they've got to bite it. You know what I mean?
That's my favorite line. I might have told you that, but
you may have, yeah.
I don't think
Really,
I originated
John,
it, but that's my favorite one to say is, fish don't have hands, so they
You
gotta
may
put it in
have
their mouth.
actually said that, yeah.
wow, Charlie.
Yeah.
No, that's gold.
So Tom, he, like you said earlier, he sticks to black jig most of the time. He's got a couple other colors that he has in his box. He's only got a couple colors, but maybe talk to us why that is. Why do you choose those colors and keep it simple like that?
Okay, my go-to colors are black, just straight up black tungsten jig. And my second, I like the black and gold, which is called Shiner, and the olive, because it is that olive jig with Northland is a different green than you're going to see when any green jig of any other company. And that green matches the color of weeds. It matches the colors of aquatic plants perfectly. Yep. And my thought in the very beginning was, well, first off, back in 2021, Nate and I were out just fishing for fun. We're going to go see how many walleyes we could catch in an hour. And we went out, and I had, at the time, this is before I was with Northland, anybody actually, I had a lead head jig. That was it, Gamakatsu hook. And Nate was using the Northland gumball of all the colors. He had like a blue and white. That's a known Leech Lake popular color for some reason. He had chartreuse on. And so we're going along, and I'm out catching him easily 9-1. Like, it was like, we were using the same setups, everything except for a jig color. I was giving him a hard time, and it was his idea. He goes, "Hey buddy, let's switch rods quick." And I was like, "That's not that." And weirdly, like, I'm getting chills right now thinking about it, because it's like, he started out catching me. And I'm like, okay, this can't be right. Let's start let's start paying more attention. So he would cast at a fish with lead on it, and the fish would the walleyes would converge on it, and they would study it a lot longer, or he would end up getting bit. When I was using a bright color, I would throw it down. They'd all go look at it, but then as soon as most of them, here's the jig, as soon as they go nose, they would just keep swimming. It's not like it spooked them. They weren't like darting off, but they're like, meh, I don't want that. Maybe they've seen it already too much. Maybe it just looked too unnatural, and they're like, I don't know, But then so we started messing around with my bass stuff at the time. So I had a green pumpkin jig, and then it was actually a black weighted wacky jig, and I cut the little weedless things off because I'm like, let's just try this, right? And I was catching them easy on that black colored jig, and then so we messed with it a lot more through that AIM year. The AIM is the walleye circuit, the team walleye circuit, and sure enough, like it almost made me a believer. I didn't do any kind of scientific study, but my goodness, when I witnessed just from now being able to see the fish with forward facing sonar and see how they react, it made me a true believer in true natural colors. And the reason I went with black is because going back in the bass world, if you're in dirty, dirty water, what do you want? You want black. Yeah. If you're fishing at night, in the nighttime bass tournaments, what's everybody throwing at nighttime is black spinner baits, black buzz baits, black plastics. So black is something that they can see through muddy water easier. It casts a bigger silhouette, and black in clear water is just that. It's a shadow. It's a silhouette. So it's always something natural. And you're highlighting, instead of highlighting the jig head, you're highlighting the bait. And then the jig, to me, like I've said many times in podcasts and stuff like that, the jig, all I want the jig to be is a vehicle for whatever is on that hook. So I've told Northland for years, if there was an invisible jig, I would be down, right? Yeah. And so that's just my theory on that, just being able to see how they react now. And it's funny because last year on Lake Erie, in April, in our first walleye tournament, a couple co-anglers were staying with one of my travel partners, and they were kind of like lingering by his boat, and we were rigging up after pre-fish, and he's a couple of them were like, you care if I come over there by your boat? I'm like, I don't care. They're a little bit nervous, they peek over the edge of the boat, and they kind of look at each other, and they're like, he's for real. Like, and then if you listen to, like, I had all black tungsten tied on, nothing else. Yeah. And if you listen to Chase Parsons had a podcast on like a month ago, and he was talking about our team dynamic we have right now. And he said that, he goes, yeah, bringing me on, he goes, is different because, they know all this other stuff. I know my electronics, so that's why it's a good team right now. And he goes, well, I have to tell you, he goes, before our first tournament day, we were out there rigging. He goes, I have to tell you, it's a little bit annoying when Tom gets out of his boat 20 minutes later and we're still tying stuff on 4 hours later. Yeah. But that's what it is. And the other reason I keep things simple, couple different colors, even plastics, couple different colors of plastic, same type idea, is tournament fishing is huge mentally. It's not all about physical stuff. You start spinning out. You can go 2 or 3 hours without catching a fish, and you start thinking, should I put this color on? Should I do this? Should I switch this, switch that? By having limiting yourself to your confidence, it forces you just to keep using those baits. You have no choice. You don't have anything else to tie on. And that's actually been my key to being consistent, like the championship last year. I was just kind of just level. And then I knew these fish were coming to where I was, but there was big lulls, and I just stuck with my confidence. And, they're going to bite it because you've caught many fish on what you've been using. Why are you gonna spin out and try this, try that? So that's just why I like those natural colored options. Just keep it
Yeah,
natural. I think that's what they like.
I see it as like, efficiency too, to
Mhm.
that, because I mean, if you got a blue color over here and a chartreuse color over here, why not just, that's a big difference when you could just throw
Yeah.
them these
Yeah.
colors right in the middle every time, and
hmm
after you have that many reps of them eating that color, like you got complete confidence that if you put it in front of enough fish, you're gonna get those bites.
hmm Yep. And it's crazy now how many, it's daily now. I used to say weekly, but it's daily now. Through social media, I get people sending me pictures of black tungsten jigs in fish's mouth. I just got one this morning. It was in a some sort of trout, some kind of lake trout mouth.
Really?
Just this morning, yeah, a black tungsten jig. And so like it's just been I think people don't even know me for much else other than the Northland black tungsten jig.
It's your go-to. Kind of
Yeah.
keep it simple
Yeah,
and
for a
yeah.
while we couldn't keep them in stock, but I think we're well in stock now. We knew to be ready for that. So
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good.
It's just cool to see that you keep it so simple. That I guess you do depend on your electronics. So that's what you not grew up doing, but it is in the fishing world that you grew
Yeah.
up in. It's only electronics. That's what you depend on. That's really
hmm
cool to see that it's that successful, and it just sounds like everything worked out perfectly for you, and it was meant to be, right?
It is. I'm so thankful for it, man. And like everything just lined up. Looking back to everything that year that happened, like COVID sucked, right? But without that, I wouldn't be on this path. Without, you know, just upgrading that boat, COVID happened too. It put me on the water to learn those electronics. And um, that Leech Lake tournament, as you know, Charlie, that Leech Lake tournament fills up within 24 hours of going
yeah,
live every year. I didn't know that at the time. I called like a week prior to it, the tournament, just thinking, hey, I can jump in. And literally, the tournament director when I called him, say, hey, I'd like to get in this tournament on Leech Lake. He goes, do you know so and so? I'm like, no, I don't know who that is. Why? And he goes, well, they just called me literally 3 minutes ago to drop out because of COVID.
What?
Even if I would have called 5 minutes earlier, it would have been full.
yeah,
See,
and you would have been
it
on
just,
to something else.
Man,
yeah. And who knows? I wouldn't have. Who knows? Who
Yeah,
knows what
that's
would it be?
that's
But
wild.
it is wild. And so the whole education thing right now, my university, it that's my, I guess, my priority right now. Tournament fishing gave me the this platform, which I'm super, super thankful for. But in all, it's a challenge to myself because I was told by some guys who've made their living fishing that out of the National Walleye Tour and out of Bassmaster, there's probably only 20 some guys total who are making, without tournaments, actually making a living fishing in the fishing industry.
yeah.
And when I heard that, I was like, no way. But then now looking is like, yeah, I can. It's definitely a thing. So that's where education comes in and teaching people. And if I can help anybody watching this, like you want sponsors, you want, a tackle sponsor, clothing sponsor, anything like that. It's not about just having the name right here on the boat. You've got to go out there and figure out a niche, something you're good at, and promote it. And the best way to promote it is teach something. It could be the simplest thing that but somebody out there is going to learn from it and be like, holy crap. And then that person is going to share it. Somebody else is going to share it. I shared a post the other day with why I use green pumpkin and black. In my hand, I had a black leech and a live leech that looked green pumpkin. And it was with my Northland tungsten jigs and some eye candy plastics, and that thing almost has 500,000 views. Like,
What?
yeah, like
Yeah.
why? But that's what, you've gotta do all those things, teach people something, show people something that's going to blow their minds. And it could be something that's trivial to you, but
Right.
really, some people are going to remember it. And
Yeah.
so you've got to work to promote those companies. I have a good day job. I have a good business and stuff like that, but it's a challenge now for me to want to see what I can do in this fishing industry. And I think education is where it's at.
Yeah, for sure.
Wow.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a really, really incredible story, Tom. And
Thank you.
I appreciate you sharing it. And we'll be sure to get all your information and leave it below in the description and how to join your university and all that.
Thank you.
Kick it over to Charlie, and hopefully we can help grow that some more. But I love just the path that you're taking and you wanting to grow the walleye industry with the use of LiveScope. I think it's nothing short of incredible, amazing, and I'm hope it keeps going. That's awesome for you.
Yeah, thank you. And there's going to be viewers that watch this that are against LiveScope.
Yeah.
And my message to them, my message to all of you watching that is literally give me a chance to teach it to you. I'm not kidding. Give me a chance to teach it to you. Use it effectively. It's going to change things because, like, the people that I talk to in the campground now up at Leech Lake that are like in their 50s, 60s, 70s that are catching more fish with it are keeping way less fish than they used to. Because before, when they were going out doing their traditional methods of fishing, they would keep everything because they didn't know when they were going to have their next best day.
Yep.
Now they're confident with their electronics. When they want to go have a fish fry, they're just keeping 2 or 3 for their fish fry and then throwing everything else back. So there's so many things that people don't look at. There's so many things unless they're living it. But just please let me teach you how to use it. And I promise you, it's going to change your mind. You just got to learn it and you're going to like it.
Yes.
Oh, wow. Awesome.
I appreciate you guys. Thank
we
you.
really appreciate you, Tom.
Thanks for hopping on, Tom.
Yeah,
No
for sure.
problem.
Oh, there we go.